My name's Rory Neary. I'm a Power Platform kind of solution architect, trainer. It depends on how I feel when I get up in the morning as to which one of those many things I am. But that's the nature of the platform, isn't it? Really. I came into Power Platform really at the start, I guess. Yeah. So I'm not one with 15 years of experience. It's always nice to know that people can have 15 years of experience in something which has been around for like 8 years. But yeah, I got started in about 2016 when I came across Power BI, and then went from Power BI through into Power Apps, Power Automate, all those other things. And then I'm lucky enough to be an MVP now, but just means that's I get to do these sorts of things and put them on my CV. But there are all the people that are putting out the good content out there. It's great to see what people are doing. Franco, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, by all means. So you may have noticed on LinkedIn, if you connected with me, that I'm all about Power Pages, but I've got similar background to Rory as far as Power Platform's concerned. I've been involved in 2006, so I've really felt the benefit of a lot of these bells and whistles features that have come about. Sometimes kind of wonder if our projects have been spied on, because whatever we've just painstakingly developed from scratch, it seemed to be like a month or two later, Microsoft would say, "Is that feature out?" And not save us all that amount of time on that project, but obviously benefit going forward. So I'm solely Power Pages these days, but as you'll see, pretty much any Power Pages project is a Power Platform project. You've got your one secure route in and out, but you can be touching AI Builder, Power Automate, all the DocGen stuff, AI, your model-driven apps come into play, Canvas apps, the whole shebang. But worth mentioning, so we're both into our community shenanigans. I first met Rory at Scottish Summit a few years ago. It was a bit of a fanboy moment for me, because I'm a student on his online course, and we had that shared love of developing other people and training people, and just had a pretty cracking time. It kind of similar setting to where you are now, I think, Laura.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, look at this. Check it out. I'm actually in a real Irish pub. That was why it took me so long to find it. I mean, it wasn't hard to find an Irish pub, to be fair. I'm in Kilkenny, so it's every other shop, to be honest. So should we just get cracking on talking about stuff to do with Power Pages and so on?
That's good.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I am going to share my screen, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a full Power Platform solution. That's Power Apps, Power BI, Power Automate. Actually, to be fair, I haven't done Power BI. I can't remember if I've done it, but Power BI is just data visualization. So, but it does have lots of different elements to it, and I just want to show the full solution, and then we move into Power Pages. I want to show the Power Pages, which is essentially all the out of the box features of Power Pages, the things that Franco will probably look at and go, I could do it so much better. And then we're going to segue across to Franco, who will then show you how to really kind of take your Power Pages to the next level. So essentially everything that I've done has been done with low code, no code. So I'm going to share my screen. So I was lucky enough for Franco to kind of call it be my mentor in terms of using Power Pages, I mean, he really is a guru. Sorry, didn't mean to put you on there. I've got another screen, believe it or not. Good. I want to see your looks of surprise and awe and all that sort of thing. Okay, so this is just a standard Power Platform solution here. You can see it's got 16 things in it, of which you can ignore the sitemaps, environment variables. Can't even remember why I use those. It's probably just through just a simple URL to get back and forth between things. And we've got two apps. One which is a model-driven app, one which is a Canvas app, and then we've got a bunch of tables that represent all the things that need to happen in this app. And so Strangely enough, I think from the perspective of having of working with this, it's actually easier to see it from the perspective of the Canvas app. So I'm going to just jump straight into the Canvas app. Which is so it kind of I was trying with this idea of trying to like, how can I make a full Power Platform solution that uses as many bits of the Power Platform as I possibly could. So I kind of came up with this idea of the Power Pizzeria, where you've got a server and they take an order and then they use that order and then they kind of, you know, they get different bits and pieces from the order, and then the orders go through to the bar, or they go through to other areas. So I'm just going to sort of show you the Canvas app just for fun. So you're kind of like, there's a home, which is nothing really. Jump onto the orders. We have no orders at the moment, so I'm just going to create a new order. And we don't have a customer. So this is where, let's just put a made up customer, which is this Kim Park. Find a table. This is going to be table 2. We'll say that there's 3 guests. This is going to be me, Sarah, and Franco going for a meal, and I'm going to select submit on that. So that order is now in progress, and what we can do is we can go to update the order, and we cancel that back. We can go to the order lines, and this is where we can start. I haven't used this app in quite a while actually. And this is where we can add different bits and pieces into it. So I can sort of select the sides, and I can then sort of say, well, actually, I didn't add item. Okay, you add the item in, and I'll do chicken wings. Add them in, and then maybe do 2 lots of chicken wings. Then I'm going to go on to the drinks. Unfortunately, I don't have Guinness here, but it would be nice. I'm going to put an espresso in there, and then maybe a lemonade. So this is, I can then review the order, and then when we're all happy with it, I can then update the statuses. So I'm going to put the required status to ready for preparation. Update the statuses, so they're all going to update on the left hand side there. Are they updating? Update all. That is interesting. Anyway, so and then I would then go to the item. This is interesting here because it's not really behaved itself. So I'm just going to go, just try it one more time, because the aim of this exercise is not actually to do too much to do with the Power App. I'm just going to do should be ready for preparation, update all, and it's probably just going to blank me anyway. Oh, there you are. So it's all ready for preparation now. I'm going to hit the back button there. And then just imagine that you're either in the bar or you're in the restaurant area. So now you kind of in the bar area, you've got this, so you've got the same app, but it's obviously the bar version of it. And you've just made the drink. So you just sort of click it and just indicate that you've actually got that ready. And then the server will then be able to look at it, and they'll be able to know that the espresso has now is ready, and the lemonade is ready for table 2. Etc. And the same goes for the kitchen. The kitchen get a different set of orders because obviously it's different things that they need to prepare. So that is the Canvas app version of this, and you can start to see some of the tables that are used in this app. So I'm just going to go on to the model driven app now and select play on that, and we should be able to see the same thing from the perspective of the model driven app. Now, the reason why we should talk about the model driven app in terms of when we want to talk about pages, because pages are just Power Pages are built on Dataverse. Therefore, everything that you see to do with Dataverse, relates to, is analogous with model driven apps. Not everything, but many things. I'm just going to go to newer to older. We should see my, this is the order that was just placed. And you can see different aspects of that order when they came, and you can actually see the different elements that have actually been a part of that order. So any questions at this point? Because I am going to stay on this for a very, very short period of time.
Just one question, Rory.
Yeah, go for it, mate.
The fact that you've gone with a pizzeria and espresso, is that from your own independent thinking, or is that because of my influence?
A little bit of your influence. I had Hussein. I had wanted to make an Irish themed pizzeria. I don't think that really works particularly well though. And I wanted to add in some menu items. In fact, I'll do that now. Menu items. Just remember, this is how cool Power Apps is. So I can go new item there, and then go on to the menu item name. It's going to be Guinness. Long description. Guinness. Menu category. Well, that's going to be. That's got to be drinks. Good. And then price. I don't know how much we paid for it. Just say it's £5. And that should be enough. And I'll do save and close on that. And that obviously would mean that if we had our Canvas app, we would then be able to go and get ourselves a Guinness. So if I just refresh that, and if we went into one of the orders, we'd then see that the Guinness was now available. So we could go on to the orders, and we could go on to this order. We could update the order lines. And I think that if we update lines, then we go on to the drinks, we should see that we've got a Guinness available to us. Where are you? There it is. Woohoo! Good, 2 Guinness. What can be better? So yeah, 2 Guinness there. But I don't know. I think it's quite cool, this idea of having, you've got your back office and your front office, and obviously you could add a picture in for the different things. I'm pretty sure that you can actually go onto the items, update lines, and if you actually, I'm pretty sure that you can. Yeah, I'm going to leave that for the moment because it's been a while since I've looked at this, and. I know that I think we've got some questions. Have we got any other questions coming through? Nope, not so far. Good. So now what I want to do is I want to sort of take you across to the Power Pages version of the same thing. So it was just a bit of just a fun idea as to, let me just see here. Power Pages. Okay, yeah. Just so we'll go on to preview this Power Page. Oops. Am I being really stupid here?
Possibly. Hit desktop.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, desktop. Yeah. So this is now a Power Page. It's something that somebody could. It's just a kind of, the theory is that, hey, what if you had a Power Page that allowed you to create a reservation so that you could, say for example, it was Christmas parties and you had 30 people come in. Then it would be sensible to say, well, actually, we know you've got loads of people coming. Can you just tell us what you actually want to order? So that might be an idea that you might want to have. So I would need to sign in. I'm pretty sure I need to do this anyway. I'll just do Azure AD. Pretty sure. What's the thing? Okay, good. And so now I've gone to my reservations. So this would now be me externally connecting to this. So now I can make a reservation because, say, for example, at the weekend, I want to come and I want to sort of say what seating time I want to do it at. So maybe it's on Saturday evening, and I haven't actually said the time because you have to do it on this little thing here. I'm sure you could tell me that there's better controls that you can have here, Franco, in terms of this. I don't think this is the best sort of control in the world.
As far as no code's concerned, though, all good.
Yeah, test 1, 2, 3 for reservations note, or it could be something like disabled access required, so not too far from the front, something like that. My mother-in-law is disabled, so you wouldn't believe how complex it is when people actually can't move around the place as easily. So here's some other features. We're actually doing a Power Pages session. So now that you actually got this, there's a lot of out-of-the-box features you can use. We can actually view the details of this. Wonderful. And we can also download it. This is another out-of-the-box feature where you can just literally download it into an Excel spreadsheet so that you can do this. Now, clearly, this wouldn't be the most amazingly interesting download you've ever seen. But at the same time, that functionality, I think, Franco, you mentioned it before, just to be able to give that functionality straight out of the box is pretty cool. And bear in mind that what we're actually looking at here, these are views. These are Power Platform. These are You know, and I think that one of the interesting things about Power Pages is they get a lot of bad press. Like, there are people that either like them, and there are also haters out there, and it's really sad, because I think they're amazing. And one of the reasons why I wanted to learn about Power Pages is because I thought, well, how can I possibly be a Power Platform trainer if I actually don't know particularly well about one of the products? And for me, I think that Power Pages fill a really interesting gap in terms of, if you've got hero processes within an organization, that you you actually bear in mind that it's £164 a month for 100 authenticated users. So if you have 100 authenticated users, that's like £1.60 per user per month. Now, that doesn't seem that bad to me. And if it was something like an insurance claim, then it would make sense that, for instead of this whole back and forth that we go on, of like, can you send us a picture of this? Can you send us a this? Can you send us a passport photos? Can you, whatever it is, you've actually got a platform that enables you to do that with a lot of things out of the box. And in terms of, I think we were looking at orders just a moment ago, and if I hit the drop down here, then you've got this portal customer order. So the screen that we were looking at just then, in terms of this here, no, it wasn't here. I'll get there in a minute. There we are. Oh no, get there. Yeah, this is the same thing. So if you want to make a change to how this looks, you just make a change to make a change to a Power Platform table view, and that's really easy to do, isn't it? So, and as you can see, that there's different sort of menus you can have. Now, the trick with this is don't decide to make you don't use Power Pages if you need a website. You want to have Power Pages if you want people with a website that people authenticate to, which is connected to Dataverse, where you have sensitive information. It goes beyond that. I'm sure Franco will be able to, talk in kind of deeper terms about how useful it can be. But this was really to get us to the I'll just do the menu browser, because this is quite fun as well. Because we've got some of the images from the so if I'm just going to go to the sides, and then you apply the filters. So this filters area is actually quite interesting. It is an out of the box sort of thing, and it does allow you to do things pretty quickly. So I'm going to jump onto this Lumi fries, and you'll be able to see details through the fries. So this is an image within the model driven app. So if you're actually looking at the if you're looking at the orders there, you're looking at menu items, and you're looking at your Lumi fries wherever they are, and then click on there. Then your image there, that is your image. That's the image that you're seeing in your portal. And I think that's kind of neat. So that probably takes me to the end of, does anyone want me to click on anything in terms of the the pages and so on, or ask any questions?
One from me, Rory, if you wouldn't mind, and that's just for that similar, considering that kind of forms over data experience that you've got on screen with filtering, sorting, search, responsive. How long do you think that would take you to knock up in Canvas apps, which Canvas apps is your bread and butter, isn't it?
I think specifically the filters would be very, very difficult, because applying multiple filters is really hard, and that's just straight up. It's quite hard to do. I think that there are this particular area is difficult. But I think that what it does the things it does really well. It doesn't try and I think that the being able to sort it up and down is quite nice. I know there's a new control that you can use within Canvas apps where you can get this sort of experience. But I think that it doesn't try and be anything. It doesn't try and overplay anything. And I think that ultimately, does it answer the question? Does it did I create this and look at it and then think, would I use it? Could I imagine using it? And I basically thought, actually, yeah, yes, I probably wouldn't use it for a pizzeria, but would I use it in a business? Would I recommend it to an organization to say, hey, you should use Power Pages? Well, I think I probably would.
Yeah, and I think the business cases, the use cases we went through that kind of made it jump out to you, a few you've mentioned already, are things like insurance claims, mortgage applications. Let's say this is a school portal, so we've got different access for our personas. Might be the pupil, the teacher, the head teacher, parent. So you can imagine they could all have different levels of visibility and the same easy access. Likewise, let's say if this was for an application to rent a property, you might have the landlord, the letting agent, the guarantor, the tenant themselves. Again, all having different permissions, different levels of visibility.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, hopefully you'll get the chance to talk to them about, you know, some of those kind of deeper points about the access levels that people can have. I mean, it's something that I get a geek out about, you know, but like that piece of it is absolutely amazing. The idea that you use your accounts table and your contacts table to control that. Now, I know that we had, William, did you have a question earlier on? You had your hand up earlier on. I apologise that we didn't answer, we didn't go to you straight away.
I did, but I didn't want to take you out of context.
No, it's all right. No, go for it. Honestly, I'm having a Guinness. I'm having a Guinness. There's nothing out of context in this presentation.
Good man. So I was just going to ask about the user interface and how easy that is to sort of customize and manipulate. Are you just going to use your Power Apps page? Can you do it on the front end, or do you have to do it using the back end? Basically.
Yeah, it's a very good point actually. There's a lot of so if you're this is the call it editing experience. If I want to edit this out, and one of the curious things about Power Pages is that you use a model-driven app to edit the Power Page. It sort of blows my mind a little bit that you use a model-driven app to edit a web page. And I think, to be fair, one of the reasons why Power Pages is has complexity is because as you dig deeper into it, there are more languages that you need to have a proficiency in. Now, I have not done anything that isn't out of the box. All of my stuff is just straight out of the box. There's like literally nothing that I've done that has got any particular complexity to it. Wasn't there? As Copilot, goodbye. Yeah, there is literally nothing in here that has. There's no code in this thing. I've done nothing to do any of that. So and this is your low code no code experience. This is what it looks like where you're able to add new areas, you're able to edit your areas and so on. You can add different bits and pieces to it and so on. Whereas you can actually go into the Power Pages management area. Now, I think, Franco, I'd be right in saying there was a time when this was the only area.
Correct, yes.
So this was the other thing that kind of like somewhat blew my mind as well. Like I'd be doing some sessions for Franco, and he would be, and I'd be like I'd be clicking on things, and he'd be like, no, it's in the other area. So now, so the reality of what we have done is we have created entries in a model-driven app. That's all a Power Page is. But that doesn't mean it's not cool, because it's really, really clever. But that's all it is. And I think that so I think that you can do an awful lot without even touching this area. But I think there are times when you just got to go into the area. So, for example, one of the points that Franco was making earlier on about multi-step forms, or rather, he was making a point about Canvas apps, and how easy or hard it is to do different things. Well, multi-step forms in Canvas apps are relatively hard to do, whereas actually in a Power Page they're actually relatively easy to do. And that's the idea of like name, you put your first name, last name, I don't know, date of birth, and then you go to page 2 and it's kind of like, I don't know, address details, something, I don't know, passport details. And then maybe there's some branching that takes place, which means you might go off in different directions. But ultimately, people, I don't know if there's any psychology in that, but multi-step forms are nicer to fill in than one massive, fill everything in form.
Yeah, I feel like you're getting somewhere with it.
Yeah. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of the fact that you've got these two worlds of design. One which is going to give you, I don't know, let's just say it's going to give you 50%, but the other 50%, probably skills wise, you need like quite a reasonably high level of skill to work in the portal and know what it's doing and so on. And I think that's where the challenge comes from Power Pages, is because learning it, it's like with Canvas apps or with Power BI, there's a level of intuition you get to with it. Whereas I think it's a little bit more difficult with Power Pages. So I am going to hand over to Franco now and see how he and then I'm going to get Franco to talk about how you might extend a Power Page to take it to the next level.
Okay, cheers, Rory. I just add into that that last answer really. What I was saying that where we are now in terms of the capabilities for the look and feel and for the customization really is it's very much now at a stage where you can choose your own adventure. So if you want to create just a highly functional, secure, minimum viable product, so you want to maybe do ticket management online, or again insurance claims, compliance cases, whatever it is, you're just exposing a business process online, essentially like an external facing model driven app. That, as Rory said, you very much can do with no code and low code, and it's realistic to say I'm going to do all of that from the Power Pages Design Studio. So I can add forms, pages, lists, have them interact with one another. Then you kind of get to the point where if I'm going beyond the basic features that are available in Design Studio, because that's relatively new, that's when I would go into and Power Pages Management app, and I would use that model-driven app to make my edits. But also, you've got the access to the code as well. So if you've perhaps internally got a web development team that's getting involved in this, then absolutely they can get their hands on the code, the Visual Studio code. Or if you've got PCF developers, then absolutely they can be getting involved as well.
So if they want to add wrappers and stuff like that and extensions for their existing site, they can make it look native towards
absolutely
existing site using that more advanced back end, right?
Yeah, and in fact, what
the world away from ADX Studio used to be, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what I think is a really good strategic inclusion in the out-of-the-box tool set is that you've got Bootstrap 5.2 on the newer portals. Previously, it was Bootstrap 3.3.6. So what you get with this is essentially, even if you don't have the skills in-house to be writing HTML from scratch, CSS frameworks, JavaScript, here you get a ton of ready-to-go components. And essentially all that I'd have to do if I want this kind of functionality is lift and shift that code into a web template in Power Pages, and I've got that fully working. I don't need to write any JavaScript, any CSS. I don't have to come up with what the classes should be. I'm just relying on this boilerplate code from Bootstrap. And then we have a templating language called Liquid that is essentially about making this dynamic. So how do I data bind this so it's not just static text like that, but it's maybe my event names, my speaker names, and the name of my insurance claims. I'm just fusing that with Dataverse data. And you'll see there's absolutely all sorts in there. So if I want alerts, badges, breadcrumbs, buttons, I know it's not, just zoom out a little bit. No, you don't get to see much on my screen this. but everything, button groups, cards of all kinds of varieties. And you'll see some of this in use on the Scottish Summit site in just a moment. Lots of that is making use of cards, carousels, modals, collapsible elements, off canvas. These I think are fantastic. So you probably recognize these from a lot of other websites. So you've got limited screen estate, especially if you think on tablet portrait or on mobile resolutions, that perhaps you want to say that should slide in from the left rather than always being on screen. So maybe that's a list of options, a list of favorites, bookmarks. They can be placed anywhere on screen. So you've got the options of top, right, bottom, so that maybe that's a settings drawer that you have slide in. All of that I can achieve with zero code other than pasting in these snippets from Bootstrap and infusing it with some Dataverse data via Liquid. Everything right down to placeholders while your content's loading, popovers, progress bars, scroll spy. So if you want to, for example, scroll through that content, that it's highlighting it in the table of contents on the left. Again, all I'm doing, if I want to make use of that in my portal, is to infuse it with some Dataverse data. I've got spinners, toasts. I'm almost at the end of the kind of frequently used stuff. But again, this stuff that you're seeing all over the web, it's there ready for us to make use of in Power Pages. And tooltips as well. So some of this you might recognize from some of the out-of-the-box solutions. They're already using this within Power Pages. But if we want to make our own kind of mashups and flatten the data model, we've got the choice to do that.
So Franco, I think that I suspect that most of the people in the room are thinking, yeah, I can see why I would be interested in this. Even with my limited amount of working with Power Pages, I'm looking at this thinking, yes, it's cool, but how do I use it? Like, which bit of it, this is what I think that if we were going to use this, we'd basically lift it and we put it into the model-driven app that supports the Power Page. Does that sound right?
Good point. Absolutely correct. So, anyone on the call got experience with either Advanced Find or Fetch XML reports? Jump back to Teams, so I can see if you want to maybe pop your hands up if that's relevant. I'm lost in my screens. Right, cool. We know Sean, well, quite a few of you have. Cool. Well, everything that you see pretty much on the Scottish Summit website is an Advanced Find. It's a Fetch XML query that I've said, for example, show me all the active sessions for this year's conference, show me all the active speakers. So we've got various different audiences for this, and just tying it back to what we were saying before about the different personas. So we've got attendees, we've got speakers, we've got sponsors. All of those people expect to be able to see and interact with different types of information. So before I sign in, it's largely marketing and type of information. So letting me get my ticket, see the opportunities for sponsorship, see where we're up to with the timeline. All of these Bootstrap elements that I populated with Fetch XML via Advanced Find. Likewise with the schedule, with the event partners. If we were showing the sponsors, same again there. Speakers, here again, I've got this started out as an Advanced Find, and I just randomize that so that each time that's loaded, a different set of speakers gets the chance to be showcased. So we're not just all about saying, let's show off about some big names. Everyone's got equal opportunity to be shown there.
Can you keep going until we appear?
Yeah. So if I was to sign in and get a different experience, which I can show in just a moment, but again, if we want to see some of those Bootstrap elements, again, all of this is Bootstrap with some of my own CSS styling. And this again is kind of an MVP. So it's not it is pro code. It's not. I'm not just using low code elements. I've done custom styling on this, but I've not, for example, had to define what is a card, how does it interact when I hover over it, what is a modal. All of this is just saying use these elements from the Bootstrap library. So I've said bring in those cards with HTML, use it with some liquid. I'll show you where to do that in just a moment. And really that's where the pages come to life. So whether that is a list of sessions, a list of speakers, another community here or there, AJ. But you see, really, when it comes to populating the pages, it's nothing beyond just say doing a query. Right, I want in advanced find. And sod's law, that always takes forever to open up the first time. So I want to maybe say, show me a list of speakers that have got us, got a session, on the table, speaker engagement, where the event is Scottish Summit 2024. And I could maybe be a bit cleverer with this to just say and make it dynamic, just get me whichever event is currently published. But then what do I want to show about that? About, besides just the name, I want to get some details about the speaker. So I show their Twitter bio, so the Twitter link, their blog, some information about them. So as Rory mentioned, it's very much kind of rooted in those model-driven app skills. So that's what I want to show. Maybe consider how I want to sort that. In fact, name's probably all right. But there we go. That would be it. So I'd say there's all my query code. I don't have to do anything really to make that kind of portal friendly or anything like that. I'm just going to say, grab that fetch XML. And that would be it. So I'd come into the portal management app, and usually where that would live, my kind of custom components. We've got all manner of web templates available out of the box, but really where you're getting into your custom look and feel and the secret sauce. If you imagine you've got Power Pages off the shelf with it's one specific Lego set, so it's specifically building permit applications, it's specifically case management, or you can say I want a blank. But either way, you get to build all of your own components, your own Lego sets. So I'm going to say here, maybe I want to see a list of speakers. I could equally be doing this in VS Code, but I assume a lot of you have got model-driven app experience, so I thought it useful to show you this. So I need to tell the template that there is a query coming. So I do that with some liquid. I'm going to say this is my speakers query. Paste that in as is, and then I need to tell it where that ends. And the purpose of that is so that it actually runs the query, it knows to treat it that way rather than try and just output some XML on screen. There's more to it, but that is the basis of what I've got going on throughout the Scottish Summit portal. So that retrieves my records. I've got them in a collection. So that I'm thinking of it in terms of similar to Canvas apps. So I've got a collection of the records that I want to loop over. So kind of my equivalent of a 4.0 in Canvas apps world is I'm going to say for each result in that query. So that's why it's important that I've given it a name. And then the specific collection is called results.entities. And then here is where I would output whatever I want to output. So if it was, for example, a list of Bootstrap cards, I'm going to come to the Bootstrap site, search for cards. Maybe go with that example. I want a grid of cards. So again, that's my starting point. And then really all I need to do is pinpoint how much of this represents one card, one record. So in fact, that I know is one column containing one card. So I'm going to take that, get rid of the rest. And then the reason I'm taking this bit out is that I want that row, that's what makes these things stack horizontally. I'm going to put that outside of the loop. So we've got a row, and then within that row, for every result, so in this case, every speaker, it's going to output this HTML. And that's pretty much me done. Apart from, I don't just want this static content. So then it's a matter of saying which of these fields do I want to actually output in that loop. So I'm going to say anything that I want to output is double curly braces. So hopefully you can see, even though it's code, it's not particularly scary code. And even if you're looking at a liquid template for the first time, it's relatively readable, I would say. But maybe I'll get, so go ahead.
Yeah, I think that you know, I used to be an accountant, so I then ended up coming into Power BI and whatnot. And when I think about concepts and I think about how I get them to do the thing I want them to do, I think it feels easier than this. Does that make sense? And in that like if I want to hit a button and make it do a thing, I just do, you know, on select, do the thing, blah blah blah, and I think this is, I mean, because obviously from mine and your point of view, we both believe in the product, right? But I think that this sort of what my feeling is that there are some pinch points of, like, you know, when you sort of say no cliffs, like they often talk about no cliffs, and you kind of go, oh, no cliffs, and you know, maybe you learn a bit about Power Apps, you get good at filtering, and then you get good at this and good at the other, and all this sort of thing, and maybe you start using components. I feel as if there is a bit of a cliff that takes place within Power Pages where you want to do this sort of thing, but actually, you know, it just doesn't necessarily click in terms of it looks like code. I mean, to be fair,
yeah, I think that's fair, and it's probably to ground that. Great point you make there, Rory. Probably show you another portal that I've got in flight at the moment, and this one is very much minimum viable product in terms of where leveraging the out of the box tools as much as humanly possible. So we've got built various different components that are lift and shift from Bootstrap. So this isn't even dynamic yet in terms of, it's not using Dataverse data, but that's my starting point. So for a minimum viable product portal that we've got responsive in there, that we've got various different types of components like primary buttons, secondary buttons, and link sets, accordions, the stat cards. We've got the off-canvas menu, and then where it will start to probably look and feel a lot more familiar. If I go through to the knowledge base, this is your out-of-the-box knowledge base that you get with the customer's service solution in Dynamics.
Franco, something you've just done really quickly, without just saying quite how cool it is you just did the resizing of your Power Page and showed you've got a completely responsive experience, which actually is relatively difficult in a Canvas app. It's not impossible by any stretch of the imagination, but you have to think about a lot harder about it. And like,
Yeah,
so when you scroll down further on, it was, you know, the things had changed from being horizontal to being, you know, vertical and so on. And I think that's one of those kind of like things that you forget, that it's like, oh my gosh, that is just so clever that it's behaving differently, and that's an out of the box type of behavior.
Absolutely, yeah, great point. I think another that I think is a bit of a pain with Canvas apps is, let's say, for example, I want something that from a certain screen size and below should live off the screen, and above that should live on the screen. So I can say, for example, this has a class to say that above certain screen sizes, it should be off canvas. So if I said, for example, I want that on the left-hand side, it's just changing one class, that it should be off canvas start instead of off canvas ends. Likewise, if I wanted that to be coming in from the top, it's just a matter of saying that should be off canvas top. So you're right, and I think it's fair what you say, that you've not got kind of those same plug-in points, and as you might imagine with Canvas app. So you know that, right, if I select a component on screen in Canvas app, that I know off the bat it's got maybe on select, on change, the visibility control. Here you've got infinite control with Power Pages, but I would think of everything you see on screen here can be very much like the HTML text control in Canvas apps, where a lot of the time where you want that slick UI and that extra level of control, people are leaning towards the HTML text control to try and shoehorn everything in that they want in their advanced Canvas app. In Power Apps, in Power Pages, you've not kind of got that same workaround. Everything is natively HTML. Everything is addressable with JavaScript. So if I sign in now, just to show you a slightly different experience.
I think William may have a question for you there.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, I've not got team on screen.
Thanks. So I've got a kind of a question about updates, and when historically, you might feel my pain here. So historically, Microsoft tend to roll out changes willy-nilly and don't let anybody know until after the fact. So sometimes we have class and schema updates which kind of play havoc on what we've created, right? So are there any ways that you can think of to sort of mitigate those risks, or think about, you know, fixing forward so that those are limited? Obviously, if we're compiling code and HTML and Liquid and all the rest of it with those changes, how can we sort of, like I say, mitigate those risks, reduce those risks of updates from Microsoft?
Yeah, great question. So I'd say as a starting point, I always work on portal-specific forms. So I could, for example, go in and forms and lists. So I could, for example, just say, well, let's all use the same case form, whether it's internal or external. Let's all maybe try and save sometimes. We'll surface the same views on the portal that what we're using internally day to day. If we create those portal specific versions, first of all, we get to make it more relevant to the customer and only show the columns and the terminology that is applicable and relevant to be customer facing. But also what that means is, if the out of the box, say, contact form, when you log in tomorrow, suddenly got a ton of extra features from the latest release, you're protected from that because you're using your specific portal form or specific portal view. I've found since I've been in the Power Pages world that I'm affected by that kind of thing much less than what I was when Dynamics was my bread and butter.
Okay, that's good.
So you got a question there,
benefit, right? That's one benefit.
Yeah.
Nice, thanks.
So a question there from Sean, fire away.
Yeah, awesome stuff. I was wondering, how do you see use cases where for licensing it would be cheaper to use kind of anonymous users with Power Pages, give them that as opposed to giving them a model-driven app and having to pay per app or per user. Not my question. I'm asking for a friend, and I didn't really have the answer for him. So now I'm going to ask you and tell them that you said it.
Yeah, so I appreciate the transparency there, or the masked transparency. It is a question I get a lot, but usually where I find that creeps in is we've got so many more UI capabilities in Power Pages than what we do internally with Dynamics or model-driven apps. So more and more, I'm seeing people that care about the user experience and the user interface possibilities saying, let's break out of, let's say, we've done what we can with PCF controls in model-driven apps. We've done what we can embedding Canvas apps and using custom pages, but we just want that supreme level of control where we can flatten the data model. We can maybe build it on the fly with the web API, use everything that Bootstrap 5 gives us. And that's why they're going towards Power Pages, even for internal users. Or often they'll see, we'll start off a project that is only intended to start with for external users. And then the internal audience think, well, they've got a great UI and we're kind of hamstrung in having to have our experience dictated by the data model. If you imagine you've got that painful experience of having to jump into, say, 10 different screens to create a complex record setup. And if we want to do the same on the portal, it's 1 or 2 clicks with a web API. There's just, yeah, so many better UX possibilities with Pages than model-driven apps. Okay. And you'll find as well that the dev time a lot of the time is quicker and more performant than Canvas apps.
Okay, because I was looking at the licensing and I'm like, wait, $200 for 100 users, or I have to pay $2,000 for 100 users, or $1,000 if they're on a model-driven app. I'm like, am I missing something, or is Power Pages like a giant loophole in pricing?
Yeah, I get what you mean. So those people do still need to be licensed with Power Apps. So I think there's relatively few use cases where you would have it anonymous users. So I'm assuming it would be authenticated. But a benefit, again, with Power Pages, not telling anyone to dodge the licensing, but you're only paying for the people that are actually using the system. So let's say you've got a user base of 10,000 customers, and you know only 200 of those are actually going to be logged in using it in any 1 month. It's the 200 you're paying for, not the 10,000.
That's huge to me for savings costs.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And in fact, sorry, just something else I thought probably useful to show on screen. So I brought up this portal, I said, think as an example of something that we're kind of augmenting the minimum viable product. So it's not completely custom, but it's not entirely low code. So you see, we've got the same kind of thing as the filters that Rory showed. We've got some card elements. So I'm using a native list, but I'm outputting that as cards. Then we've got the chart layouts. But likewise, if I then say go to show me a list of my tasks, what I'm seeing there is a Dataverse list that's been exposed on the portal. If I go to user management, this is a secure way that we're providing this customer to say to their clients that subscribe to the portal, you can manage your own user base. You can let us know when someone starts, when they leave, when you change roles. If you want to grant them administrator access, that's something we're being asked for more and more. I don't have any tasks at the moment, but that is another very common customization where if you imagine what we do with task management within Dynamics, we're extending that to say customers are allowed to do that. So as Rory mentioned, things like getting a photographs of specific evidence for an insurance claim, let's give a way to do that through the portal. So when we create a task in the back end, that fires a deep link over to the customer. When they click through, they'll be taken to that task with the ability to upload that document, that photograph, and that will land against the correct structured data in Dynamics, rather than you think the equivalent is maybe send an email out, send a letter out, someone's got to receive that, scan it or double key it in, attach it to the correct record. Here we're giving the customer the chance to kick along that process themselves to trigger the next stage of the workflow, to trigger the approvals and that kind of thing. With time in mind, should we jump over to questions?
That's good. Sunil, you've been sitting there with your hand
Yeah.
up. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much for doing this, Franco, Rory, and
No
VIT,
problem.
definitely. And I have a couple of questions. Won't take much of your time, but first thing first, I want to understand, though we understand that Power Pages is responsive out of the box, but when we add any of the component from the Get Bootstrap, does that change or it remains responsive by default again?
Absolutely, yeah. Anything that you, and thanks for joining, Sunil. I'm excited to see that you're here. Some proper VIPs in the audience. So everything that we bring in from Bootstrap is natively responsive, and that's where that responsive behavior on Power Pages comes from. So that's what I say. I think it's a really good strategic decision by Microsoft to include Bootstrap. So it would be anything that we're kind of custom coding from scratch. That we need to be mindful to say, let's use some of those classes that make it responsive. So as a very simple example, if I just share my screen briefly again. Is everything on there is made up of classes with, this is an old version of Bootstrap, in fact, I'm using on Scottish Summit. So we're limited to all the UI capabilities from 10 years ago. So you can imagine we've got so many more capabilities.
Good
now,
thing is that whatever we used to do 10 years ago still is working.
Yeah, absolutely. But what we can say now, for example, here, this would be built into these sample code that we're lifting and shifting from Bootstrap. But what this is saying is extra small resolutions. So mobile, for example, it should be 12 twelfths wide, aka full width. Otherwise, at medium resolutions and above, it should be 6 twelfths, aka half. So that's as much as it takes to make this stuff responsive. And then what's really nice with the latest versions is I can say, well, at medium resolutions and below, move it off canvas.
Understand. Okay, I got the answer for this. I have another such thought. Let's say the list which you shared in your minimum viable product, right? And let's say if I want to filter out some of the records based on the logged in user. So this logic would go into the liquid code, or how
Yes, good question. So first of all,
work?
my newly resurrected laptop is telling me that the battery's running low. Just very quickly plug in. Hopefully there's no explosion. Nice knowing you all. Fingers crossed.
Have you dried off yet, Franco?
Have what, sorry?
Have you dried? Your jeans dry?
No. Right, we're plugged in. So great question, Sunil. So we've got, there are two ways to this. So first of all, we've got security trimming. So we've got complete granular control over row level security in Power Pages. So in many instances, that would take care of what you've just said. But I think what we're getting at is the equivalent of what we would have in the model-driven app that would say equals current user. So there's something magic in Power Pages, which just quickly get logged back in. This is one of the many hidden gems that we just take for granted once we've been using Portals for a while. In fact, I'm guessing I've done the Franco thing and not actually shared my screen. So I'm going to advanced find again. So let's say, I know it's a list of events. In fact, speakers. So I want to say speakers where maybe best practice, where status is active, but then I want to get, let's say I'm only allowed to see my own speaker record. What I would do there is say where the contact equals, and it doesn't actually matter who I select. The portal will magically interpret that liquid to say where the contact is the current logged in user. Or likewise, if I was to say where the contact's account the company name being the lookup field to account. Again, it doesn't matter which I choose, it will magically interpret that as where the company is the logged in user's account. So I've done that with advanced find for speed's sake, but the same goes for your system views as well. But it's a very good point you raised. So if I was to do something like where owner equals current user, that's completely irrelevant to portals because a user, the system user table, that is irrelevant to portals, Power Pages. Great question.
Thank you so much. And the third thing is not a question, but yeah, getbootstrap.com is gonna be a savior for me at least.
Yeah, I would get used to it. Maybe I would say that the top picks from there are off canvas. Get used to using that. That's awesome. Modals, cards, and probably collapses. You get so much mileage out of those things. It's kind of a bit of a contradiction. So when you think how Power Pages is often seen as being behind Canvas apps, when you think of what an impact the modern controls that have recently been introduced have had in Canvas apps, we've had the equivalent of those in Power Pages for the last, say, 8 years or something like that. It's just that you've required code to code and HTML snippets to get those working. Very next question.
Hi, Francis. Hussain here.
How are you saying?
So one question, like how shall we evaluate a requirement falls under model-driven app or in Power Portals?
In terms of how to evaluate the requirements, I would say, first of all, who are the personas that should be able to access that business process? That's probably where I would start. So let's say this is, again, an application to rent a property. So I know that we want, let's say, landlords with one level of access, letting agent with another level of access, and the applicant, the tenant, with another level of access. I would create those as the web roles to start with. Then I would think there needs to be a way to identify on that application who is the landlord, who is the applicant, who is the tenant, maybe what is the property. So as you're probably getting a sense of, a lot of this starts with the data model. And then I would be building in my status reasons. So perhaps draft is one of my top tips. I'll always create a draft status reason. So the user, I'm considering at that point, is allowed to make any changes that they want to make until they submit. So that would be my next status reason, submitted. Then it's perhaps in review, approved, or rejected. Lots and lots of business processes that end up with those kinds of status reasons. With rejected, I typically want to capture the reason. So I'll create a field in that to segment maybe which were due to credit, which were due to not hearing back or having pets or whatever the reason is. And then perhaps usually what comes up that isn't necessarily in the requirements from day one is there's something else in between approved and rejected, like we require some more information or clarification required. And that's where I'd be thinking, well, how do we capture that from the customer? And I'd be adding to the data model then something like a clarification request or a task, like I showed on the last portal. So my internal users can say, Hussein, we're happy with your application, but please provide a copy of your bank statements. And you've got a structured way to provide that. So I would say where it's a good fit for the portals is very much where it is that kind of business process, where you might be tempted otherwise to use something like Microsoft Forms, but then you realize, well, as soon as we receive that submission from Microsoft Forms, we've lost the chance, really. We can't then say, right, we just want you to provide some extra information. We want a life cycle to this, and we want the customer to be able to interact with the business processes that affect them. And then, in fact, incidentally, so going off on a slight tangent, that's where my interest in portals came along. So my background was very much Dynamics 365 customer service. And so many of our business processes were, right, we've got this mega long workflow. And when you create a case of a certain type, we're going to create task. And each of those tasks will say something like, send a letter to the customer requesting a copy of their driving license. Send a letter to the customer requesting bank statements. Then we receive them and somebody's got to key in all the information. They've got to assess it. They've got to attach it to the correct case. Then they've got to push the status along, mark the task as complete, which unlocks the next task. Whereas with portals, that's how we've got the opportunity there to just have the customer keep kicking it along themselves. And we've not got the redundancy of, or in fact, their case owner is off on sick, their case owner is on holiday for 2 weeks. No one's going to see that email's been received. The pain point I keep mentioning is when I was working away as a contract Dynamics trainer, I was pretty much chained to the whiteboard 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. That immediately meant I could never get to the bank. I could never sort out any urgent banking problems unless I wanted to try and get in front of someone on a Saturday. When I saw things like self-service and internet banking, all of a sudden it's 24/7. It's not dependent on me having to wait for real-time interaction. As soon as it was async, right, superb. That's me sorted. And that's very much what I see with enabling these business processes for self-service on the portal. William, another question there?
Yes. Thank you, Francis.
No problem.
Nice one, thanks. Yeah, so I did have a question. It was kind of related a little bit to what Sunil was talking about. So a couple of clients ago, I had a scenario where we had a web page where we needed to have, well, we solved it with URL logic, but we had a web page that was given out to different clients, where different clients had different levels of access, but we wanted them to have a different landing page based on what URL they used. So we just used URL logic, and then based on what URL they put in, that would then update the page to be what it needed to be in terms of what was on that page, rather than creating multiple pages on the portal, right? So how would you kind of look at that using Power Pages, or would you use that? Would you do that?
Assuming it's an authenticated experience, I would be basing that on either the web role or the account, depending on the use case. So an example from the real world is I've got an insurance client in Norway where their insurance is typically sold through brokers. And what that means is that their end customers don't necessarily know this insurer is their insurer. So you go to that central insurer and it's going to be a bit of a jarring moment, because you think, well, no, I'm through such an insurance broker. Who's this company? So what we've done with that is to say, once you log in, it assumes the branding of that of the partner, of the insurance broker that you've logged in through, and that's simply by it's data driven. So on that customer's policy, it'll say this is their broker, and that's a branding that the portal assumes. But another way you could do that is with URL parameters. So they're a first-class citizen in the portal as well. So we can say receiving, maybe let's say you're on a banking website, and we immediately want to pick up the fact that you want to see details for Florida and for mortgages rather than just our standard homepage. Again, URL parameters are a nice, easy way to do that. But also another common customization that I build is I kind of leverage a lot of what you will get out of the box with model-driven apps and make that portal-facing. So I will create essentially a user metadata table. So maybe if they've had to tell us about who they are once, the next time they log in, it'll pick up, here are their favorites, here's their chosen location, here are the items that they want to see on their landing page. And then it feels more and more personal the more that you use it.
Okay. All right, nice. Thanks.
No problem. And sorry, for everyone's benefit, the kind of thing, just random aside, that I typically put in that user metadata table are things like bookmarks, favorites, likes, reads. So if you imagine we've got a form level notification, we want to not keep nagging you with that every time you log in. So it'll give you the chance on this table to say, I've now read that. And the reason that it's on the metadata table and not on the notification is that might apply to a whole organization, or it might be portal wide. And we want Rory to specifically be able to say, don't nag me about it again, but Franco, you should still very much see it every time you go in until you've acknowledged it. So yeah, bookmarks, favorites, likes, markers read, they're the common ones. But really well worth building into your requirements in your build. That I think good examples of, so these are where the questions are so handy because they're kind of bringing out the value. Well, they're the kinds of unwritten requirements that add so much benefit to every portal build and are highly reusable that often the customer will never think to ask of. But once they see them, it's like, yeah, perfect, you read my mind. Yeah, we definitely need that.
We need them, yeah. Okay.
Cheers, Franco. There's just if you go in the Q&A, there's a few comments and thank yous. There is just one question there. Is there any way to move the initial navigation bar at the top to be either left or right, like a dashboard navigation?
Yeah, absolutely there is, but not without updating some web templates. So that is something that you're going to have to get your hands dirty with code for. But yeah, I've done a number of websites where the requirement is that the navigation is on the left. Where that does become a bit of a pain sometimes, or is I would suggest if you're doing it left or right navigation, do consider things like that off canvas navigation. So beneath below certain screen sizes, you're either shrinking it in width or you're saying that it's going to be shown off canvas until the user clicks a menu to bring a menu icon to bring it in, because you're actually taking up valuable screen estate with that. Thanks very much for the feedback, Sarah. Useful presentation. So I'm assuming that's mostly on Rory's side. Thank you very much. Thanks for bearing with my gremlins and all sorts of stuff that's going on.
Is it worth
Can you stop sharing your screen for a second?
Will we get an inception?
Is it worth us doing a little wrap up? There's only one thing that came out for me was comparing Canvas apps to portals, and it kind of feels like, yeah, you can, but it's not really the point, is it? Because actually, when you compare Canvas apps to portals, it's really all about comparing the audience. So Canvas apps are internally focused predominantly, and model-driven apps are externally focused because you can have, authenticated users that can authenticate that you don't even know. And I think that's and so although we can compare Canvas apps to portals, they're not really in competition with each other because they're not for the same people. Does that make sense, Franco?
Yeah, I think great point there. Yeah. And also, I guess, related to that is that ability to, although it's not native out of the box, why so many people are keen on having that self-service user management in the portal is that my customers, so that the people buying the portals, can rest assured, these tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of companies that are partners on our portal don't have to nag us to say, this person's left, can you just change their details, and can you just add access for this new person or elevate this person to a super user? They just natively, not necessarily, but they've got that self-service capability themselves. Whereas with not a comparison to Canvas apps, but if you imagine the complexity of this was, if it was an externally facing Canvas app, and you somehow gave external access requests and management to that audience, that it'd soon become quite a beast, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm not knocking Canvas apps. You know that I'm interested enough to at least have registered on your excellent course, Rory.
No, it's more the idea that we shouldn't necessarily think, well, I'm not going to use Canvas apps now because I now know about portals. It's not that. It's, you know, and I think the key with portals is also that, you know, obviously the nature of the Power Apps license is it's an all you can eat. So you can have one Canvas app or you can have 90 Canvas apps and it all costs the same and they can be completely different and so on. Whereas it's with model-driven apps, with Power Pages, it's all about having that fundamental hero process that is so incredibly important to your business. Like if you're a recruiter, maybe it's that process of getting their details so that you know that they've had, you know, that's your client effectively, and so on. It's about having those really, really important processes in place. Whereas Canvas apps, you can throw up a Canvas app just because you need a thing, and then you can get rid of it. But you would never really do that with portals, because
that's fair. And to clarify for everyone else, where I'd mentioned the analogies with Canvas apps and model-driven apps is really because I'm often cross-training people. So it's all about pulling in, right, well, you've got that level of comfort with Canvas apps. I'll often say, right, let's start the session with showing you, right, the equivalent of a screen is a web template. The equivalent of your for all function is a liquid for loop, or of your styling properties is CSS, that kind of thing. And likewise with everything right down to Power Automate as well. Yeah.
Brilliant. Sarah, would you like to wrap this up?
I've got loads to say, but I appreciate we're starting to run out of time. But firstly, Rory, when me and Franco go out for pizza, we're ordering a lot more food than you just ordered. Your demo.
They'll be Guinness on the menu.
Red wine for me, please. But yeah, as Sean pointed out, Will's come dressed for the occasion.
Cool. And in fact, sorry, just a quick one. Anyone that is planning to be at the London UG on the 24th will be there and going out for drinks afterwards as well.
Sharon's my London escort. Well, and you now, Franco, we're travelling down, aren't we? But I'll be a northerner in London, so I need someone.
It'd be great to meet you in person, actually. Nice.
I know. Yeah.
How ironic! You're both in Manchester, and you're going to meet in London.
Well, are we getting the same train, Franco? Have you booked the train yet?
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my
no disasters for that one.
Yeah. Oh well. I think Franco's going to have to get. He's sitting in his Vimto flavoured jeans at the moment.
I know. Let's keep him on as long as we possibly can. We're already 20 minutes over. What's another 5?
It's pretty on brand for Power Apps, so when it doesn't disappear.
Oh no! Thanks very much, Rory. Izzy, who does our all the hard work for this and the visuals, she's been on the VRT. I think she might have dropped off now. She's doing the Power Up program at the moment, so she's
cool.
hearing you. Yeah. She feels like she's on that. Yeah, but actually she sent me a message during this and said this is really helping her to make sense of something. So
I think there'll be some people out there then when they hear my voice, they'll just start falling asleep. So I did the Power Up program. So I was lucky enough to write the material for the Microsoft Power Up program, which has thousands of users and so on that learn about Power BI and Power Automate and so on. And I wrote about 70 videos for them. And it's about 9 hours. So there are people out there that when they hear my voice, like, oh, it's you. Yeah.
So it's great. It's great scheme.
I'd better dash now as well because I think my family is saying, "Where the hell are you?"
Yeah, no, thanks very much, both of you. It's great to have you on here together, and everyone else for joining as well. Sean, Sunil, Will, Sharon, and Sarah's clapping. I can't see you, but thanks. There's some regulars there in the background. Can't list everyone, but yeah, thanks everyone for coming. We've got
Thank
Anna
you.
next week. Anna Black's on Tuesday, so that's quite a popular session. Sean's coming up soon too. We've just announced that today.
Transatlantic, lovely.
Yeah. It's all going on. But yeah, thank you. Have a great evening, everyone. Have a good weekend, and see you all soon.
Cheers, everyone.
Thanks, Rory.
Thanks for
Thanks,
being
everyone.
Guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.